everything, I think, is to be able to meet the need of the times. That's what I think it all is. And so what does that mean? So that means a certain kind of resilience, a certain kind of drive, a certain kind of clarity, a certain kind of pitch-perfect response, and then a certain capacity to receive or grok what are the need of the times, to always be in that resonance or that music. That's what I think an erotic human being is. You know, a realized erotic human being, that's what they are. And then, but there's an element that is confounding, and that is that you can't be any of that until you're brought into the underworld. And I don't, see, so here's the interesting story, right? Parmenides was brought into the underworld. And the nature of the underworld is it's undifferentiated. There are no categories. One experiences it very much like chaos, and it's all mixed together. You know, your corn and your peas are mixed together, and your grief and your joy are mixed together. It's blended, it's mixed. And so in Buddhism, there's this idea of Buddhism 2.0. So Buddhism 1.0 is the ability to ascend, it's to go up, it's to follow order, it's to follow the rules, it's to, you know, be an obviously, overtly beneficial person in the world. And our consciousness as a culture stops there for the most part. The difference is that when you go to the ascendant states, you work hard to get there, so you feel like you earned it, and so then you respect it. Well, one gets brought down into the feminine, into the underworld, and so there's a tendency to not honor it or recognize it for the ultimate 2.0 jewel that it is. Why would you go through all of this? This looks so difficult, and really nobody wants the grief and the sorrow and the anxiety and the upset and the frustration. Let's just cut that part out. We're going to just cut that out and make it this, this one-sided reality that is very simple, but much easier to sell to people. And if you aren't in service to this down here, then you're in service to what? Yourself. And so if you're in service to yourself, you're going to look for the easiest way to sell something, and you aren't going to be selling anything. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. You'll be selling, a bunch of conceptual ideas, and in a market that's already saturated with conceptual ideas, so that pretty much all that happens in that market, and this is samsara, and this is why it feels like a traffic jam. It's just conceptual thought competing with conceptual thought, and very much like the way they say in nature, only nature can tame or trump nature, meaning only this emptiness, only this can trump all of the conceptual thought. We've all had the experience at one time of having our breath taken away, and your thoughts are just going, and poof, you're just, that's basically what it means. Is samsara is conceptual thought, so to have that eliminated and have it filled with something else. That's the physical analog model for what happens to human beings when interacting with the feminine. And so you have to look at how would you shift that? How would you reverse that? What would you do in order to have it be that people can interact? Because it was a map for how to interact with the unconscious mind in a way that you didn't go nuts. That's why every tradition has a book that speaks to the madman, because the descent is pure madness, unless you have some kind of basic map. I just did the Red Thread book, which is intended to be a basic map for how to enter these realms with relative grace. See, you don't have any control. All you have is your intention, the purity of your heart, and willingness to surrender. Really, those are it's an upside down skill set that you need in order to enter the underworld. But the underworld is where you complete your spiritual path. And but nobody liked including many Buddhist traditions like the inconvenience of it. So they just pretended like it doesn't. They pretend like it doesn't exist, and then you have a lot of famous men, and who really who do they abstract the really interesting stuff and. Well, the culturally interesting stuff, and just kind of don't mention the other stuff. And so when you say who is an erotic man, I would say it would be Parmenides, the one who was first of all brought down and from the awe of the grandeur and worked. Jung would be another. And just worked, came back, and with absolute fidelity, the kind of fidelity that can only happen from a selflessness, but a wise selflessness. It's not a performative selflessness, but a wise selflessness with absolute fidelity presented what he was given in that location. And that's a model for the whole world. That's a model for any true philosopher or thinker or writer, to be able to enter and listen and then with fidelity be used as an instrument for that to come through so that you present as a doorway that offers more access rather than a toll booth. That blocks access, that says, I am the light, I am the one, I'm what you're looking for. And that's why in more advanced levels of practice, both in Eros and many traditions, that's where you run into the God realm. And the much more dangerous and volatile klesha, because now you have some power, now you have some velocity. And now you have just enough information to be dangerous, right? And you have just enough information to be that toll booth. And then what happens is you just have this lineup of people at your booth that you can't attend to, because the only thing that can attend to any one of us, to all of us, is that emptiness, is the goddess, is the dakini. So that's it, those are the... when 8, 9, 10 of the Bodhisattva path, I would say, but I'm not that expert, but I would say 8, 9, 10 in the Eros path has to do with when you have a tremendous amount of power, a tremendous amount of magnetism, draw, sophistication, and information. And right there, that's the litmus test. Do you have the capacity to keep sending people behind you? And here's the punchline to a very, very bad joke, and that is, if you don't, you get brought into Vajra hell. So that's what, it's the chutes and ladders of enlightenment, is that right when you get to the top, so don't keep going toward the top until you really have these pieces moved through, so that you are clear that your consciousness does not have any automatic grasping or gripping, because when it comes to it, if you grasp or grip in that moment, you'll grip and it's going to go all the way down and bring you into Vajra hell. Well, what is Vajra hell? Vajra hell is unbearable self-consciousness that feels like the walls are progressively closing in a way that you can't break out. They talk about it being icy, but in most traditions, coldness is thought. And so you're just locked in thought, circulating, and there's no air in there, and that's really what the Vajra hell is. And you can't break out, because your thought can't break out of the prison to see how to get out. So you have to play with absolute care and precision in order to make it through. So an erotic man, plays on all three levels, so plays in the material world, plays in the energetic or emotional world, and plays in the kind of spacious emptiness world, in service to. But see, I say that, and then as soon as I say it, I hear all of the internet marketers saying it. I'm in service. I'm here to contribute, and they do it with some kind of performance. And I'm going to keep saying, because we don't want to get caught if we think we're doing something bad or wrong. No, it's not getting in trouble. It's not getting caught. There's no one who's going to catch you except for you when you end up in Vajra hell. It's not like you have to charm or seduce or convince anybody. If you could convince everybody in the entire world, and if you make it to that initiation and you don't have an open hand in that moment, you die. It's not that if everybody rushed in to save you, if all the Buddhists and Bodhisattvas, akin, everybody, they really wanted you to make it, but you hadn't done this one piece, this one emptying of self in that moment. There's nothing every force on the planet could do in order to prevent you from being brought into that lockdown. And we don't know how long it lasts. They say eternity. I just think it's because it feels like it's eternity. But it really does feel like eternity. And there are people who don't make it out in this lifetime, or the next lifetime, or the next lifetime, or the next lifetime. So and I say this because Eros is an advanced practice. No matter what anybody says, I don't care. It's when you're working with sexual energies, it's advanced, period. So these are the things you have to face. And so there's a way that an erotic woman, not neurotic, although they are interchangeable sometimes, but an erotic woman is so deeply sensitized. And so the erotic man has to learn to have that level of sensitivity in perfect response to what she's experiencing. And think about how many times, just in your life in the past 10 minutes, you've thought, I should. You had the sense that there was something that you should do, and you just dismissed it. Or shouldn't do, and you dismissed it, or should allow, and you dismissed it. Whatever it is, how often we dismiss those things. You are living, if you're living with a fully realized erotic woman, for example, she's in pitch perfect response to all of those herself, and you have to be, and every single one missed is a pretty vital infraction.